Hello, everybody. My name is Jenny Malm, and you are watching Jenny's Biblical Messages. Today, I want to take you to a scripture in 2 Corinthians 6:14, which I found out yesterday. I mean, I knew this before, but I really found out because I put myself out there how true this scripture is. Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. Sometimes when we hear that, you've heard, if you're in a Christian household or around Christian people, you've heard this, to be equally yoked. Well, what does equally yoked mean? Let's just go there first. The term yoked refers to a wooden beam that joins two animals. So this was farming back in biblical days. And it was this beam that would join the two animals together. It says like oxen, and they would work together in the fields. If one animal is significantly a different size or strength, they will pull unevenly, making the task difficult and inefficient. So what this actually means is you have two people going down a path, and even though they may want the same thing in that path, the outcome may be the same. They're very different, so they're pulling in different directions. And this is a term that is easy to understand when it's somebody that has completely different views as you, right? If one person wants to go into a marriage and have a family, and the other person doesn't want children, you're going to be pulling in opposite directions, right? So that's an easy term for it. But I decided to put myself out there and go on a date. And I've only been talking to this guy for a couple of days, but we know some common people, and he's worked a lot on his life in other areas, such as nutrition and exercise and things like that. And I've worked my life more with my mind, my belief system, my Christianity. But we both know that we can do something very difficult and be successful at it. Okay? So as we're talking, we have a lot of the same views as family, political views. He told me his God story. And he asked a lot of questions, which I really, really, really appreciated. He asked me a lot of questions about, what is, how do you date I am 52. How do you date at this age and maneuver like the whole sex topic is really what it came down to. It wasn't just sex, but it's kissing, being affectionate, like where does the line end, things like that. And I was honest with him, and I said, I know the end outcome, what I want, but I don't know the journey as to how to get there, because at this point in my life, this is the first time that I've tried to do this in this way. I have kept myself single, mostly because I'm just not ready for all of that. And even though we probably have like this 90% of going in the same direction, there was a part of the conversation that turned last night that made it very obvious that 10% was a big percent. And I, in my ways, said something really dumb, I guess. Really dumb. And I'm pondering this. And as I got done with the date, and I was kind of horrified with myself, I called a girlfriend of mine and I told her the story. And she laughed and laughed, and we just had a great laugh about it, which I appreciated and I needed, because I was horrified. Like, okay, so why this even popped into my head, I don't know. But I have to look back and say God was completely in the situation, and I maybe wasn't being as honest with myself on what I was saying. So God was pretty much, I feel like he kind of came in there and he intervened, and it's funny, and he has a sense of humor. So we're talking about sex, and I said, well, even more than like in the Bible it says you're not to have sex with somebody until you're married, and even more than that, and I said worries me, and I'm not like a worrying type of person, but I said the word worry, and I don't even know where it came from. I said, I can't even believe I said this, you guys. I can't even believe that this came out of my mouth. I said, well, when you have sex with somebody, you're actually letting their demons inside of you. And if that wasn't a bad enough thing to say, I also went on to say, and not only their demons, but everybody that they've slept with, demons, has a chance to come inside of you and to take over. And the look on his face was shock, I think a little bit of anger, a little bit of like, I don't know what to do with this. And he said something to the fact of, I go out on this date with this hot girl, and I can talk about this church stuff, that's fine, but we have to go one step further, and we have to talk about demons and sex. And I just stopped, and I looked at him, and I said, you think I'm hot? And I don't know if it's this funny saying this into a computer as it was saying it to my girlfriend last night, but I was just like shocked. I was like, wait a second, you think I'm hot? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't know that. Not that it changed anything. But that's just what I heard. And I maybe this is just the humor of men and women and a discussion. I don't know. And it all came like crumbling down on me on how significant this one conversation really was, and how it was really not the appropriate time to have this conversation. However, the conversation has to be had, so when is a good time or when is a bad time? I don't know. But then in the shock of it all, I find myself starting to cry. Because it's not a first date if somebody doesn't cry, right? And that's what I said, because I'm trying to wheel this all back in, and I'm I'm trying to salvage something that was totally messed up, because I'm trying to backtrack and say, not that you have demons per se. And he's like, stop. Like, this says, like, you need to stop. Yeah, I do. But I came home. I had this story to tell my friend, and we had a good laugh about it. And she said, I want you to journal this, because this is going to be great going back someday. And I feel like you could maybe write a dating book, and which put all kinds of different ideas into my head, because I'm just like, I said that when I was single and in the world single. I said I could write a book and make a lot of money on this, because I find myself in these situations and I open my mouth. I don't know. But now it's a totally different world, being a Christian woman and trying to do this. And I don't know, do you single Christian men go through the same thing? And it's not like he's not Christian. He grew up with it. He has God encounters, but he has not been going to church, and I don't know for what length of time, but he was very open to it. He was very open to it. He did say that he went to a church service at somebody's house, and it was kind of weird that people were like speaking another language under their breath and walking around. And I started laughing. I was like, yeah, speaking in tongues. And I said, people shouldn't put a like new believer or somebody that hasn't been through that in that situation. But then I totally made it worse, and this poor guy will probably never visit my church. I probably ruined him on Christianity, which was not the point of the whole thing. But I do want to read one little extra insert from my Bible before I leave this today. And this is on being unequally yoked. And that's not just for husbands and wives or boyfriends and girlfriends. It's also for business partners, for friends, that you should be walking down the same path in order to make this easier. And it became very obvious last night that this was not going to be an easy situation. And if I wanted it to be easier, I really did need to stand on finding somebody that at least is in a church, and I can understand a little bit more about what I'm going through. So this says, good partnerships do not foster codependence or independence, but interdependence. So that every party feels secure, is stretched, and enjoys synergy. The partnership multiplies the productivity of both parties. And that's with anything, like I said, friendships, business, work relationships, and definitely dating and romantic relationships. So I have no challenge for you today, except if you have any advice to offer, or words of encouragement, or even if you want to tell me how stupid that was. I know you don't have to tell me, but anyways, that's where I'm going to leave it this morning. It's Monday morning, and how can you get off on a better foot than this? So have a blessed day, everyone.